There comes a moment when effort alone stops working, when doing more, fixing more, striving more no longer brings peace. What if thriving spiritually is not about becoming someone new, but about moving through levels of awareness that slowly return us to who we already are? Today, we are exploring what it means to grow through consciousness, not force transformation. Welcome back to Inner Light, a space for gentle inquiry, inner leadership, and soulful truth. I am joined by Louis Brantmeyer, who is a dating, relating, and sex coach who teaches from lived experience rather than theory. Louis has worked through deep relational wounds, spiritual exploration, and conscious rebuilding. And today his work focuses on helping people cultivate presence, intimacy, and inner authority. And in this episode, we are exploring how the five levels of consciousness can free us to thread spirituality, not by bypassing our humanity, but by inhibiting it more fully. And I know I spoke a lot, but then this is all the work which which Lewis has done, and we'll know about his journey furthermore. And I welcome you to the show, Lewis. It's such an honor hosting you today.
An honor to be here. Thank you.
That's great. So, Lewis, before we name or define anything, I'm curious when you hear the phrase levels of consciousness, what feels most alive or personal for you right now?
Well, levels of consciousness is a really great distinction. In fact, I'd say one of the best distinctions that I use in my coaching. And so the idea is people have different states of conscious orientation. They're not better or worse for being at any particular level or not, but there is more available to them. So there are at least five levels. There might be more. And I'll just go through them in turn and distinguish them for your listeners to give them a point of reference, right? And these largely come through my experience with one of my mentors, Jonathan England, who is the one who created them through his life experience. So there's level one, which is being disoriented, living from a pool of poison and pain called big and little t trauma, stuck in the past, hoping for a magic pill, hoping for a savior, feeling like one can't make one's life conditions equal one's blueprint, and yet wanting an amazing life. And most of the world starts here in wealth, in relationships, sort of hoping that their success or their achievement or their desire will happen to happen. Now, if it is to be, it depends on me, which is the moment where we go from level one to level two. Level two is instead of disoriented, no goals, no hope, going to goal oriented, where it's like, all right, well, I can accomplish something. I can, through the activation of my will and my engagement with the world, choose to make happen what I want to have happen. And there's benefits to this level, there's drawbacks. The benefit is most people are leaving their full power, capacity, will, focus, drive, motivation on the table. And once they realize, oh, wait, I can actually heal this health challenge or create a girlfriend or, create new income, expand my income, scale my business, all the things, then they get into action. They get into motion. And we humans, we learn from Maxwell Maltz and his work, Psycho-Cybernetics, have an automatic success mechanism. We have an orientation towards the achievement of goals. We know from modern neuroscience that the instantiation of a goal, like the acquisition of a goal, then comes to be as a pattern of recurring neural firing in the prefrontal cortex. So this is part of what we're here to do. And if we don't master, if we don't embrace it, if we don't honor it, then we're leaving something existentially, spiritually, really on the table. And what I mean by that is you can't really get successful at the higher levels unless you master the lower levels. It's like a role-playing game where someone is, going through level 1, then level 2. They have to get some kind of tool or skill that then they can use in levels 3, 4, and 5. But if they've never gotten that skill, they won't be available to exercise it when they reach those higher levels. So level 2 is great, except when our goals start to have us. See, it's okay to have goals. Don't let goals have you. And most people in level 2, their specific goals come from their blueprint. Their blueprint being a domesticated programming from preachers, teachers, family, friends, media, government. Have in America, they used to say have a white picket fence and 2 kids and a nice family. Now they say, get health insurance, do what you're supposed to, do what you're told, get a good job with benefits or whatever, right? So this is programming, and a lot of people choose to do what they're told to without ever questioning it, because the blueprint isn't built for you. It isn't built by you. It'll never fulfill you. Not necessarily. There's a chance it might, but for most people, it doesn't, because we're always more, better, different, other than what we think we are, or the frameworks that we use to understand ourselves, the distinction sets. So at level 2, there's these 2 problems. One, getting lost in the sauce with the goals that, even if we achieve them, how long are we happy with them? For like 10 seconds. Then it's more, better, different. Next wife, next job, next business, next accomplishment. And so we humans are also on what's known as the hedonic treadmill. The hedonic treadmill has us get up and go and seek and search for something new, no matter what we might have achieved. And the other thing at level 2 is that your programming doesn't just consist of telling you what to do. It consists in telling you who you are. And by the way, coming to the inner light, that'll be level 3. So thank you for your generosity and in listening so deeply to this, because where the intention of this podcast comes in will fit right squarely into this distinction set. So there are people who their blueprint, part of which was built by trauma potentially, and by the acquisition of a belief about who they are. They walk around thinking, well, I'm not good enough, I'm not capable, I'm not significant, I'm not perfect, I don't belong, so I have to do something to get those ways or get those things. And I'm here to say, cancel, clear, delete, delete. None of that is true ultimately at the soul level for you or me or anyone else. But the belief that it's true causes us to go overboard when we are doing things in order to achieve those states. So there are psychopathic mastermind game players who see life as a series of chess moves that they have to make the right moves in so that they can get somewhere, so that they can have control. This is level 2, gone from healthy, activated, sort of masculine willpower to toxic masculine. And we can see the results in the destruction of the economy from time to time, ecological disasters, the way that the earth has been treated since the Industrial Revolution. We can see this in the dysfunction of how people's egos run rampant. They need to defend, dominate, control, protect, spin things in politics. And so level 2 is not all there is. It's okay to have level 2 so long as it doesn't have you. And, I also say it's okay to have your ego so long as it doesn't have you. Now, the thing is, if somebody comes back and says, well, I don't have an ego. Well, then you can rest assured it has you because you're not available to perceive the ways in which you receive life through it. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. That was Wayne Dyer. And until we make the unconscious conscious, the outer world will rule our lives and we will call it fate. That was Carl Jung, famous psychologist of the 20th century. In fact, one of the most famous. And so we manifest our reality with our subconscious beliefs, which are beliefs built either from domestication largely or trauma. both of which are just forms of programming. And manifest doesn't mean to create so much as to make obvious what is already there. Where is that which is there? Inside of us. So everything in our world is a mirror. How we get treated in relationships, the quality of the money we're making, or the job we're experiencing or enduring. And, when someone ends up, um, living from a life of autopilot programming, never realizing they could be more or better or different or other than what they started as or who they think of themselves as, well, then that generally, there's a ceiling. There's a ceiling that they can't get past. There's a box that they don't realize they're in. So, how do we let go of that programming? How do we even know that it's there? Because for some people, it can be like the Matrix. The Matrix has you, to quote the film. You don't know what you don't know about how you can't go where you want to go. Because, there may be desires in your heart or hopes that are beyond that which you can perceive. And, a great example, Neil Strauss, in his book, The Game, Penetrating the Secret Society of Pickup Artists, he talks about being a socially awkward, anxious, introverted nerd and studying all these pickup gurus so that he can get a girlfriend, so that he can have more sex, so that he can have great relationships eventually. And for the whole book, it's like self-empowerment. This is my first book of self-empowerment in 2007. I read this book and I was like, wow, okay, I don't have to be a socially awkward, introverted, anxious nerd. I can actually create a relationship. I can be successful at dating. I'd spent most of my life, by the way, um, sexually and emotionally repressed out the wazoo by Catholic Christianity. And other people were going out on dates and flirting and having relationships, having sex throughout high school. I was not doing any of that. So senior year, a friend of mine who I had converted from Protestant to Catholic, he converted to atheist. And then I followed suit because I was like, all right, there's problems and questions in Christian scripture that we can't answer. There's issues and challenges and doubts and, um, you know, things that we're not sure we want to stand behind. So I started to read this book and I was like, okay, I can be different. I can have what I desire, and that's okay. So I pursued that. And then, let's see, it was about 8 years later, Neil Strauss publishes a second book called The Truth, an uncomfortable book about relationships. And in this book, he tells the very vulnerable story of how he cheated on his girlfriend and how he went to therapy and rehab even to try to get over and heal from that tendency. And then he talks about in the book how he spent the better part of a year practicing open relationships and polyamory, interpreting himself through the lens that, well, maybe I'm meant to have sex with a lot of people. Maybe I'm meant to have many different types of relationships. And maybe monogamy is just a form of programming, just another, as I would say here, blueprint. And then eventually he realizes, sorry to spoil the book, it's a page turner, it's amazing, but I got to make the point here. And he realizes that his initial desires for sex and connection and relationship were infected and contaminated by unmet emotional and psychological needs that he couldn't perceive, that were in his blind spots. So even the fulfillment of our desires consciously won't necessarily fulfill us subconsciously. In fact, there's a good argument to be made that most people's apparently unmet sexual and relational needs are actually the result of unmet emotional and spiritual needs. So they're trying to solve an internal problem with an external solution. And yeah, they can feel better. They can get that dopamine hit, that release of neurochemicals, that limerence period of honeymoon chemicals for the first 6 months to 2 years of relationship. But we look at why do relationships end in painful divorce these days? Well, because most people aren't trained in relationship, number one. And number two, they're not trained in dealing with the domestication of the programming, the trauma that's still inside of them. Until we see, we're not here to feel happy. We're here to feel fully. And once we feel fully, we get to feel happier than we've ever felt. We get to become a being that we always already were, but we weren't always aware that we were. We get to be from peace, love, and joy, from bliss, from happiness independent of conditions, as Shinzen Young calls it in the Science of Enlightenment. So let's say, somebody keeps manifesting the same type of partner or the same limited experience of income. Well, we can ask, why is that there? How did that start? And what beliefs, because your thoughts lead to your feelings, lead to your actions, lead to your results. What beliefs and what thoughts have constrained your perception, your experience, and your action in the world? And then we can free people. One of my beliefs, this was in 2020, was that if I have too much fun and I allow myself to succeed too much, then somebody will get hurt. And that goes all the way back to when I was a young kid and I was playing with my brother in the living room of my grandparents' house. And we're having a lot of fun. And I accidentally knocked him over and he hit I think it was his face on a vent and he had to get stitches. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't have too much fun. And so this came up in a business coaching session with a theta healer who was like, well, this is why you haven't been allowing yourself to make more than 5 grand per month. And so we removed that belief. Within 30 days, I had my first $12,000 in cash collected in my business. And from then on, it was an entirely different world for me. I went on to collect hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash over the next several years. Now, most people, and this is where it gets even more interesting, the wealthy, the successful, the powerful, they don't want competition. So they may market to us beliefs and frameworks to keep us hunting from that hedonic treadmill, things that we don't need, spending money that we don't have, cancel clear, that most people don't have, and on things that they don't need so that they can look good and avoid looking bad. Again, all of this is from the realm and the range of subconscious programming. So we need to deal with it. We need to heal it. We need to feel through whatever's there. Cave that we fear to enter holds the treasure that we seek. Now, if someone gets free of what's inside of them, then a whole new world can open to them. A world where instead of looking to the past and saying, all right, it's bad and wrong, and I have no hope and there's no way to change it, like in level 1, or level 2, like, hey, I need to get somewhere and I need to do whatever I have to in order to get there because then someday maybe I'll be okay. I'll be good enough. I'll have what I need, right? I'll be who I'm meant to be. At this point, if one can realize the bankruptcy of the ego and its programming, one might pop it like a hot zit. This happened to me on the hot seat. I did grueling 5-hour processes at a spiritual community where I brought my judgments of everyone in the community into the room and they brought all their judgments on me. And judgment, it can be a painful experience both for the judger and the judgee, right? I'm making you bad and wrong. You make me mad. It feels bad how you treat me. And so you're an asshole or whatever, right? That judgment is us arrogantly assuming we know how things should go. When you look at Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, you see that everything that has happened and everything that is happening, it's all connected. If you untangle one thread from the scope of cosmic history going back 12 of the 14 billion years this universe appears to have been around, then everything will be different. So do we have the right to judge, really? Do we know that everything's not working out for a reason? Do we know that all things are not working for good? Well, I say, regardless of what we know scientifically or philosophically, ultimately, that if we can choose to burn the blueprint, let go of it, heal from it, heal through it, then what becomes available to us is the perception of all things as perfect. We can simply take that on as a better story than the stories we've been telling ourselves. It's just a story that I'm not good enough or I'm not capable or there's something wrong or I need to be different or whatever, right? So why not tell ourselves the story that gives us the greatest power, freedom, self-expression, peace of mind, presence, and joy? And, modern neuroscience also suggests that at least level 3 is obviously and evidently true. Probably level 4 too. Probably level 5. I mean, we'll get there if we really want to thrive and talk about the levels of consciousness through neuroscience per se. But we see that the mind makes meanings. It hallucinates meanings. There were two pandas that escaped from, it was either Sweden or Switzerland, a zoo in one of these countries. And people were given a hotline they could call to inform people if they saw this one or other of these pandas. And these pandas were recovered, but people kept calling the hotline. Why? Because we see what we're looking for, and we may see things that aren't there based on what we're looking for, or rather, what we're looking from. One of my teachers likes to say, we don't get what we're looking for, we get where we're looking from. And so the opportunity is to, instead of getting stuck in those stories, those beliefs, those restricted views, to step outside of them. And in level 3, we get to be present. We get to engage and remember the gift that the present moment is. Remember to remain present, the present of the present. And when we do that, and we start to take on the view that everything is empty and meaningless as it is, then we start to be free to create the meaning for, or assign the meaning to, what we experience. Like, all right, well, life may be empty and meaningless, but it's empty and meaningless that it's empty and meaningless. I can invent or create whatever possibility I want. Perhaps my possibility for my life is to create this artwork, or to serve people, or to have a blast in a way that harms none. Follow my bliss, right? That could be one of the phrases or frames for level 3. And being free of my blueprint also opens me up. There are programs like 45 Days to Awakening by Dr. Jeffrey Martin, or already mentioned The Science of Enlightenment, where you cultivate this experience of happiness independent of conditions, where I'm not looking outside of me anymore. I'm not looking behind me into the past anymore. I'm not looking into the far future anymore. I'm simply here now, and I'm recognizing that everything that I ever wanted was always here now, and it always will be. Now, this doesn't mean that I won't pursue goals. But it does mean that if I do pursue goals, happiness will come from me being engaged with the progressive realization of a worthwhile ideal. I enjoy the journey. There's joy in the setting out. There's joy in the journey. There's joy in the goal. It's a different type of joy when I get to the goal for sure. But the joy is all pervading. And anytime I get triggered into something other than peace, love, and joy, I get to go sit in my breakthrough chair and say, all right, I'm not getting up from here until I dig out the weed from my mind garden, or I feel into the somatic trauma clump being held in the body, as we know from the book title, The Body Keeps Score, right? And some traumas, they can't just be healed through mindset work. They need to be felt into, felt through, and patiently dealt with. And so I deal with the trauma. I deal with the programming. I release the resistance to life that I at some point programmed in, or trauma, or whatever left me with. And then I walk about my day free, happy, and healed, and whole, and healthy, and aligned, and alive, and vital, and vibrant. Because instead of resisting, which is what most people do, which is what we're trained to by the workaday world, the 9 to 5, industrial capitalism would rather you slave away at a desk until you're exhausted and exasperated, not hoping or having any energy to pursue any dreams or possibilities, but rather exhausted enough so you go to sleep, so you wake up just in time to do it all again tomorrow. And that to me sounds like, I mean, it's not even a hedonic treadmill. It's just a treadmill. So like, when people get to level 3, they start to feel good now. They start to operate from a space or state of allowing and receiving. Ask and it is given, to quote the work of Abraham, who talks about how we're meant to have what we desires, or the desires that we have. We're meant to achieve them, and what we want wants us. If we're in a state of non-resistance, if we've let go of our beliefs that things are hard and we can't and it's difficult, right? So we get to that level and magic can start happening. Deepak Chopra, I think, has a book called The Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desire, right? And he talks about synchronicity and serendipity. You look at Kevin Trudeau's Your Wish is Your Command. And he says the best way to manifest things is to feel good now, allowing yourself to perceive, receive, and experience in your imagination as if they've already happened. trusting and knowing that it'll come about in the divine, perfect timing and way. And you don't have to control it. You don't have to fight it. You do get to take responsibility for and seize the day when opportunities show up on your radar. But and I've had so many things show up like this. I had a former partner that we've broken up since we were together, but this was back in also in 2020, um, where I put on my vision board, acting from the exact awarenesses that I'm teaching you all. Uh, I said, all right, I choose to, I am my perfect divine partner made manifest. Not I'm creating, not I want, not I desire, but I am. Meaning it's already inside me. I already receive it. I already perceive it. I already enjoy it. I already know it's here. And then for weeks to a month, I just lived in that awareness. I spent time standing in the feeling of my wish fulfilled, enjoying perceiving the reality and experience of my desired result in my imagination. And then lo and behold, what was also on my vision board was she's better than I can imagine. And my high school crush from 15 years previously showed up into my life, and we fell in love and had a relationship. And not only that, she was praying. This is where level 5 sort of it's a teaser trailer for level 5. She was praying. She said to herself, "Well, God, I want tools to help me deal with what's going on inside of me, or else I'm done. I'm going to kill myself." Now, I had just signed on my first high ticket coaching client for $5,000 for 3 months. And this woman, what she loved, her name was Tommy. And what she most loved that I gave her in coaching with her was this event, this online event that I gave her access to. It's called Awaken Life Live. She attended Awaken Life Live. She fell in love with it. She shared it with her friend Jan. Jan shared it via email just at the right perfect time with my now former partner. So this was an answer to prayer for her. And she shows up to the event and she sees me there and we strike up a relationship. So my manifestation of my partner beyond my imagination allowed for and worked in concert with an infinite intelligence that guided events to support this woman to not kill herself. And then, so anyway, level 3 is about starting to take on the belief that all things work for good and everything happens for a reason. And even if I get triggered, even if a circumstance happens to me that I don't like, even if it's painful or I'm enduring suffering, still it's working for my good. It's working for my good by showing me what's inside of me. You can't shave the mustache off the mirror. So if I see a mustache out there that I'm like, I don't like the way that looks on my face, well, I get to go and grant myself grace and space and deal with what's inside of me that made it appear outside of me. Because we're not just manifesting those cool things that we want, we're manifesting everything that we don't want all the time. And why are we manifesting what we don't want? Well, because we're resisting it through subconscious blocks, beliefs, limitations, or programming, or just trauma we haven't dealt with. And so we get to cleanse our lens, take the lies from our eyes and the fears from our ears. And once we do that, we start to live from that awareness that everything's okay. Fundamental well-being is what Jeffrey Martin calls it. Now, then there's level 4 and 5. And I'll do this elegantly. I'll do this quickly. So level 4 is where we realize, okay, well, not everybody realizes what they're here for. Not everybody realizes they're here to thrive. Survival is a given. Thriving is a choice. I've worked my butt off in order to get to the point where I can spend most of my days in peace, love, and joy. And where feeling something other than peace, love, and joy it's a breakdown. It's a break in integrity. Like, all right. And it's not something that I judge, and it's not always something that I can pull like a wheel from, like a weed from my garden immediately. There are some traumas that go deep, that run heavy, that require facilitation and support to clean up, which is why I have coaches and facilitators and healers. Every coach needs a coach, at least one. So like, but what I'm saying is the general trend and the majority of my time is spent thriving where I'm at ease. I'm in peace. So imagine someone gets to experience that. Well, we could tell a sci-fi story about someone who lives eternally, right? Well, if or we could look at Groundhog Day, right? This movie with I forget the name of the actor, but he's living through the same day over and over and over again. And it resets and he doesn't grow old. He just learns best how to mess with the people around him to get more of what he wants. And so like, the universe is more than just our wish phone. And it's not just our wishbone. I can manifest pretty much anything that I desire for myself. But when I look at the world in general, I can't personally manifest the end to the war in Gaza or Ukraine. I can't personally manifest all of international law bending to my will or changing, or all of economic fiscal policy or national, militaries, right? So I'm not manifesting everything that is with my subconscious beliefs. And yet, I'm manifesting such a non-trivial, relevant amount of it that the more I empower myself, the more I become a source of wealth, the more I become a opportunity to be of service to the world. You see, we can take on not just I am responsible for myself and all that I manifest in my life. We can take on our power to respond ably to all that's uh, going on around us. We can look at the world and say, all right, I have a say. I can change that. I can make something different. Now, you can have anything that you want in life, but not everything. We have limited time, limited seconds, limited calories. So if I say, all right, I want to end child trafficking, that may be the one thing that I do with the rest of my life. And I applaud the people who give their hearts and souls to being that kind of contribution, especially when they do it from something other than ego. You see, somebody could be in level 3 and they fill up on bliss. They overflow from bliss. There's nowhere to go but up and out. And then we look at the mirror neurons. Our brains recognize and realize and notice and distinguish when other people are around. It's not going to go away just because we try to ignore it or shove ourselves into a virtual reality simulator. Our mirror neurons and our brains, our nervous systems get co-regulated through engaging with other people. We are hungry to engage with other people. And would we prefer that engagement to be from a space or state of us just taking or giving? And here's the thing, we're always giving already anyway. Who we are as a contribution, who we are as the impact we make. You look at the Wernicke-Broca loop in the brain. We're here to understand and create speech. Why? To engage with other mammals, named humans, named Homo sapiens. So we have this special relationship with humanity as individuals. We may become an enlightened being, a bodhisattva, a guru, whatever, but you can't get around, you can't get over, you can't pretend the experience of human suffering isn't something real, something worth dealing with. And even if I see that life is empty and meaningless and I'm free of all the illusions, the delusions of being run rampant by my mind, still what becomes available if I look around me as I see people trapped in a cage of their own making and they don't realize that the door is actually unlocked. All they have to do is push it open from the inside. You can't force a flower to unfurl. You can't force a blossom to bloom. So it's going to be on them to take their form of responsibility in their timing around whatever's going on for them, right? And I can be a standing wave of transformation. And I can stand for the dissemination of this information. I can stand for transformation. I can stand for people to, come into this awareness, to wake up. And we used to say in Earth Waking, your job is to wake the world up to the fact that we're all one and everything is perfect. Now, if we're all one, that does not mean that everything is going the way that it should. Yeah, absolutely. So it means that that awareness can change and transform how we experience life. So from level 4, we know what we're here for. We're here to give ourselves. We're here to gift our time and energy and attention, not to get anything, but because we get to give. And then the most controversial level is level 5, because there's 100,000 different spiritual paths, 50,000 interpretations of just Christian scripture. How do we know which is the right way to go? I don't know. It's Pascal's casino. is to quote the French philosopher, a spinoff on his idea, Pascal's wager. Well, he says, if we just bet on one of these religions, maybe we'll be better people and we'll thrive more. Like, all right, well, you can have that bet. Tell me to just have faith in one of these directions, but maybe how do I know which one of them it is? So we're in a casino. Where do we place our bets? What I say is I've seen enough evidence to believe there's an infinite intelligence guiding the hand and all the variables and things in the universe and, pulling for things to work out for good, but we get to co-create with that force. We get to submit and surrender to that force. So whereas level 4 is giving, it's like the reactivation of the healthy masculine. Level 5 is the reactivation of the healthy feminine. You can't see the picture while you're inside of it. And if life is a picture, we can't see the full picture of what part we're meant to play, but there is an infinite intelligence, an intuition, a God that can guide that way. And when we surrender to that, things go better than our little meat sack, our little ego, our little mind may try to make it happen. So just to make this illustration, and then we're good, then we're done. Is there was a time in my journey as an entrepreneur when I didn't know how I was going to pay rent the next week, and I made an offer to a bunch of clients in a group coaching program, and they were broke. And then my intuition told me, well, go ahead and gift them about $2,500 worth of coaching. I said, all right, I guess I'll do that. I don't know why. That's not going to help my immediate problem. And what I was doing was I was standing in this feeling of trust and knowing I am taken care of. God's got me. Everything's working out for my good. And I'd had many data points to confirm that for me, that belief over the years. And so I was like, all right, well, I don't know how it's going to work out, but I know that it will. The next day, I get a call from a family member to tell me, hey, you actually have an account with $2,500 waiting for you. I'm going to send it over in the next couple of days. And I realized that with relief and relaxation, I was like, all right, yes, I am provided for. I am taken care of. And when I do what I am told, that I can trust that am held. I can trust that I'm taken care of. Now, which God, which religion, which spiritual tradition, I don't know. I've got my practice. Here is my way, Nietzsche says. Where's yours? So that's for me to invite people into the inquiry of, and I have a whole spiritual community called the Mystic Crew, where we unite faith and reason, science and mysticism, philosophy with spirituality in order to seek a greater awareness and embodiment and visceral, palpable, direct experience and transmission of love, God, and truth. Bringing all the souls to the table who are producing epic AF fruit, like creating really great relationships and really great results financially, spiritually, whatever else. So, it's an inquiry, and I'm willing to live within the question rather than dying through dogma, as most people find themselves doing, because it's easier to live with a false certainty or a fake assumption that something is true than to question one's beliefs through and through. Anyway, um, how do we get from level 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5? Well, just to summarize and conclude, and then and then I'll invite people, where can they find me, of course. Level 1 to level 2 is choose to be responsible for your life, and accept that to a certain degree you can make it so. And then level 2 to 3, well, peel back the layers of trauma and programming. And from 3 to 4, well, if you've filled up on bliss, if you're no longer giving to get or giving to try to fix something out here, then you can trust and know that you get to go and you get to give as a contribution. And then from level 4 to 5, well, as you're seeking to thrive through living your purpose and serving as a contribution in the world, ask yourself, how can I get guidance from some reliable force that I can absolutely trust is guiding me to be used in a better way than I can conceive on my own? And let me do my best to be in relationship with that force and surrender to it. Now, that doesn't mean that all things that are spiritual aren't necessarily, I mean, there are evil spiritual beings. And that's a whole nother podcast. I just got to put that caveat in there because you could be following a guidance system or an intuition or a spirit that is ultimately looking to kill or destroy or damage you or other people. And that will be a very different feeling encountering something like that. If you've been on a path of healing through level 3 and level 4, you'll probably be able to recognize it. But, as Christian scripture says, Satan appears as an angel of light. And the new age is very convoluted and complicated, full of a lot of people thinking they're following truth, love, and God when really they're harming themselves and they're harming others. So anyway, where can you find me if you want more of this? LouisBrantmeyer.com, LouisBrantmeyer.com. I'm also on TikTok and on Facebook. It'd be an honor if you want a copy of my most recent book called The Gnostic Knife Fight, my journey through spirituality, religion, transformation, from Protestant through Catholic to atheist to Buddhist, from occultist to, now mystic and philosopher. I'm happy to gift you a copy. Feel free to just direct message me, The Gnostic Knife Fight. And I really love and appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much for listening, y'all. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Louis. All the insights that you've given and all the 5 phases that you've discussed today and the levels of consciousness. I'm so glad that you did that. And I feel the listeners, they probably just resonate with it. And I hope they also take in all the insights that you've given to them. And for our listeners, um, anyone who is listening who feels spiritually tired or stuck, I want to ask you this. What if nothing is wrong with you and this moment is simply asking you to meet yourself from a deeper level of awareness? Just introspect on that. And the key takeaway that I have from Lewis today is spiritual thriving is not about transcending life, but about inhibiting it with increasing presence, responsibility, and inner leadership. And Louis, for listeners, you've already shared so much and you've told them where to find you. I hope listeners, you genuinely just reach out to him if you have any doubts, anything in mind, or if any of this helped, just let them know. And thank you for spending this time with us on Inner Light. If today's conversation stirred something within you, allow it to unfold slowly. Consciousness does not rush. Until next time, stay with your breath, your body, and your becoming.